Hey everybody, thank you for joining me on my channel again. Today we're gonna introduce a new segment. It's like a podcast slash interview. So I've went out and interviewed someone on a certain topic, and we're gonna take a look at it. The topic is on cultural beliefs, traditional beliefs. Our ancestors believed that there's a higher power well before Christianity was introduced into our society. Now, I'll tell you this. One of my uncles, he told a story about in the old days, they believed they practiced like spiritual rituals, and they worship spirits, and they believed that there was a higher power that lives in the skies. But in their own understanding, they believe that there was a higher power or higher being living in the clouds. That sounds like God. Now, the early church was established by the brave men and women of God. They taught us biblical teachings and showed us the right way of living. Now, I say right way of living because some of our practices, our ancestors' practice, seem carnal. In everything, there's good and bad to it. Now, in our culture and belief system, there's some good traits and principles that we can learn from. So today we're going to hear from Loretta Hasu. She's the manager of Access, Education and Public Programs down here at the National Museum in Port Moresby. Loretta has a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology, Sociology and Archaeology. She also has a Master's in Museum and Heritage Studies from ANU. Now, enough of me talking, and let's just get straight into the video.
My name is Loretta Hasu, and I work here at the National Museum. And I'm excited to see what we can offer in terms of our traditional belief systems of our ancestors. In our ancestors' time, the connection between people, environment, and the spirits are integrated. So they see spirits and the environment as something that they work alongside with. They look to the, say, plants and the animals as things that they can relate to, and basically, before they get whatever's in the forest, they have approaches that they take in order for them to extract what's in the forest. For example, if somebody wants to go to a sacred site or a site where there's plentiful of one particular trees, maybe kwila, for example, for making or building houses, they have to get blessings, or somebody takes them there and had to say something to the environment, maybe to the trees, maybe to the rivers while walking, making their way there. So in that way, the spirits that live around that area get to appreciate that it's not a foreign person coming through, but somebody that they are aware of, or somebody that they can have a close connection with. So we do have, say, our own established traditional village religion, not practiced today, but in the past. So yeah, I mean, spirits, again, are closely linked to everyday life of ancestors before. Like I said, in almost everywhere around PNG, they believe that there's a higher being that lives above. Or so the spirits that I was referring to, basically, these are people. These are spirits that people make connections with. So they make connections with these spirits, and not necessarily to the higher being, but both the spirits and the humans does have this common understanding that there's a higher being. I think something that we can learn of those beliefs is that, say, our ancestors relate to the environment very well. And I think if you take it from today's perspective, we talk about sustainable environment, and that, and if you take that approach of our ancestors, I think we would gain so much value in recognizing that we should look after the environment, and should we go to extract trees and other resources from the environment, there's a process that we must appreciate or go through in order for us to be given that okay to actually access them. So more or less kind of a blessing. We have to get blessing or seek the okay from the environment, because something that we don't see nowadays, the value in us recognizing that animals and plants are there to actually support the livelihood of people. So likewise, if we tend to appreciate what our ancestors did in the past, I think it's something that may improve going forward, especially when we talk about sustainable environment and how we can look after the environment, especially. Globalization is a big word, but it includes introduction of religion, introduction of, communication technologies, including, introduction of new ways and approaches to including education. It was the early missionaries that kind of introduced education system to them. So what they did was they never create schools where our parents live in. So they actually pick out the students from that particular area and take them to another area to actually undergo the education system or start, learning process. So in that way, they're actually taking them out of the, comfort zone, the environment where those cultural belief systems are a norm. So they take them out from there to another place, and that's when they started to, lose focus on what has been, practiced in the past, or in say, for example, in the event that he was supposed to go and learn about maybe some rituals, that time period has been taken away for him to go and learn about, the modern world, for example. So in that way, it kind of override the idea of him learning about what was practiced in the past. So likewise for today, most of us live in towns and cities. We don't go often to the village. And so we are losing that belief system that our ancestors practiced in the past. So we look to the idea of, modernization more compared to what was in the past. There's a lot of, influences coming from outside that contributed to us not knowing what our ancestors commonly believed in. Well, partly I think if we go back to look at our, ancestors' practice, I think they value women as equal partners in whatever activities they do. Take, for example, a houseman. Women are restricted into entering a houseman, even cooking food and bringing it to the houseman. So women know where the lines cross, and they would not overstep that. So that has been taught through, mothers and aunties to, know that norm that you are not allowed to actually go close to the houseman, or even know what's inside the houseman, or even know who is entering the houseman. So there are, areas where you are taught at that level where you kind of appreciate and restrict yourself to, overstep that boundaries. For, nowadays, I think it will go back to our education system as well, and how we could actually teach people, especially kids at an early age, to understand and appreciate the values that both men and women contribute to, and we would appreciate what women can do and what men can do, and where we can come to be in an equal partner on the field, maybe, in whatever we do, maybe on the playing field, or maybe in the politics, or maybe here at a museum. Or
So you said crossing that line. So I mean, today probably that line has already been crossed.
Well, it's an imaginary line, and
violence
yes, definitely you can say that. I think that line has been crossed, and we see that we are entitled to do anything that we want. I think it's a Western influence as well. So, if we revisit the ways of our ancestors, maybe it can give us a guide or a direction going forward. So, take for example, say our ancestors in the past, they know what roles women play and what roles men play as well. So, if you talk about gender, maybe it's more about gendered roles nowadays. So most argument would come along that line of what women do and what men do. But those kind of, ideas never existed in the past. They know that women are supposed to do this and they will do it, while men will. It's a natural, it's a natural thing. But we kind of picked out the differences that exist in the present. That is the reason why we kind of give that, certain gendered role to one particular gender compared to the other. So, there are many things that we can learn from, our ancestors' practice back then. And not many of them would be good, but some would be good to actually guide us. Christianity brought itself a set of beliefs and a guide, especially, when you talk about guide, it's more or less about the Bible. So the Bible comes with its own teachings as well. And again, a more natural thing where they do believe that they exist, not formalized like what it is in the Bible, but
they actually believe.
They believe it is a set of practice that is encouraged over generations, and so similar to what the belief is, especially to do with the Bible. Christianity does also bring a lot of influences to the society as well. Take, for example, for my role in the museum, I had to tell that story about, introduction of religion into certain areas where they have close relationship with the, spirits. Initially when Christianity was introduced, most of these items that have close spiritual connections were asked to be discarded, destroyed, and even maybe given to the missionaries back then. So we have several items that went through that process where they had to be submerged underwater and had to go through a lot of deterioration, especially for carvings and that. So, again, you can see two conflicting ideas coming through. One is the traditional village religion, the belief system of people, environment, and spirits being integrated. And then you have the idea of religion coming in, where they discourage people closely, people more or less kind of having close connections to the spirits. So religion would be more or less one influence as well. Let's say we put it in a bigger picture, it would be more or less globalization. So you have introduction of religion, you have introduction of education system, and then all others that came later. And now we are in a more, digitized world. And so basically all those influences has actually contributed to us not connecting to what our ancestors used to practice back then. our ancestors basically had, I'll say, does not have any records of same-sex marriages. No, I think it was never encouraged at all back then. So whoever they decided not to marry, they remain single for the rest of their life, especially for men, likewise for women. And I think, growing up and going back to the village several times, I've realized that few of my aunts and uncles decided not to marry, and they've lived there, like single for the rest of their lives as well. So, but hardly you'll see that there are, say, evidences of same-sex marriages.
So this idea was
more or less introduced. It's an introduced idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, we go back to looking at some, say, practices of the past, especially our ancestors. One of them is through that initiation ceremony where young boys are taken to the houseman and then taken through the process of rites of passage to be given that status as being a man from boy. That's when you can marry. But prior to that, no, you're just a boy. You have to go through the, say, stages of maybe making gardens, maybe building a house, even hunting. So that has to be supervised by those that are assigned to you to actually guard and guide you. So if you do not meet that particular, or if you did not kill maybe a wild boar, a wild pig, or even certain animals that may grant you that status, no, you won't be allowed to marry unless you fulfill those obligations, like making a house or building a house. So initially they'll say, if you're fit to actually build a house for your mother, then we can see that you're a man now, you can marry.
You can go marry now.
Yeah, likewise for gardens, if you're not able to go and cut down trees and grow food that can probably sustain your household for another month or so, then you won't be able to marry. Unless you do that, then they'll release you. And you fit man now you can marry. They have certain, say, stages that you had to go through in order for you to be granted that status as being a man or being a woman before you are ready to, get married. Otherwise, they would refuse. So more or less it sets a guideline to actually guide a particular person into getting you prepared for what's next to come. Well, we have the museum opens Mondays to Fridays from 9 to 3 p.m. If they want, usually when they come through, it's just the displays there, but if they want a more guided, say, tour or wanted to extract a lot of information, they can make a request to the education officers or the curators, ask for a specific person, or even, just say, I want a guided tour. I want somebody to tell me more about one particular, item on display, or about a specific theme or topic that they are interested in. And one of us should be able to come and attend to them and, give them as much as we know and as much as they want. So,
All right. Yeah, thank you, Loretta, for your time.
My pleasure. And thank you for you as well and your approach to us, especially me trying to give my own, say, understanding of what our ancestors' life in the past and how it can actually guide us going forward. So, my pleasure. It is very interesting.